What to look for in a competition AR traveling through enemy territory with firearms and ammunition for NRL 22 this week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is sponsored by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday we're going to start off with a question from Patreon, and Shane asks, "Hi John, love the show. What should I look for in a precision AR-10 chambered in 7.62-308 for PRS-style shooting? There are so many options out there, but I'm currently thinking match-grade 20-inch barrel at a minimum. Thoughts?" Well, Shane, you're right. There are a ton of options available for precision rifle shooting for 308 semi-automatic rifles. We try not to call them AR-10s. I prefer to call them large frame ARs because an AR-10 actually does describe a rifle built by Armalite, and those parts aren't necessarily fully compatible across platforms. When we're talking about large frame ARs, that is pretty much a descriptive term, no matter if it's a DMS or DPMS, a MA-10, Armalite, Knight's Armament, all the different ones out there. So make sure you understand that not all parts are compatible through all those different platforms. Now, in a large frame AR, if you're wanting to stick with that 308 cartridge, then I definitely wouldn't go shorter than 20 inches if you're wanting to compete with it. You need that velocity to really be able to be competitive with the 308. Once you start getting down into that 16 and 18 inch barrel, they become a whole lot more maneuverable. You can get in and out of the barricades and around vehicles a whole lot easier, but you lose a good deal of ballistic performance and you limit yourself on what ammunition you can shoot. So definitely keep that barrel 20 inches. If you really want to get as much muzzle velocity as you can, I would even go to 24 inches. But when you get to 24, you start to end up with a pretty long overall package, and getting it in and out of things and around barricades can be a little bit more difficult. So definitely not shorter than 20. Now, as far as what you need to look for beyond that, your accuracy comes from barrel and bolt. So if you're building the rifle yourself, then you make sure that you get a barrel and bolt from the same source and make sure that they will check the headspace on that. Or if it's a custom barrel, that they will actually chamber it to that bolt. So that way you're good to go right off the bat. Beyond that, everything else pretty much ends up being personal preference. Do you like a single stage trigger or a two-stage trigger? My preference is for a two-stage on a heavy semi-automatic rifle because you do have a little bit more movement in the system, and a really light single stage trigger can cause you to double unintentionally. So that two-stage trigger gives you that nice take up and then a very short, crisp, clean break. So something like Geissele High Speed is a really good option for a two-stage trigger on a large frame AR. Buttstocks, you know, the sky's the limit on buttstocks. I usually tend to lean a little bit more towards the Magpul PRS stock, but there are guys out there that like all the different ones, the Luth AR, and quite a few different options there. Handguards, I tend to lean a little bit towards smooth handguards than ones that are covered with Picatinny rails. I like that 12 o'clock rail, but beyond that, I probably would look for a M-LOK rail system so that you have the ability to put rails where you want them and the rest of it is clean. That way you can also add, if you decide to go with the ARCA type system, then you can put ARCA rails where you want ARCA rails at to be able to interchange with different bipod systems and different tripod systems. Again, that's if we're looking at a competition AR. For magazine systems, there are really a couple of different options out there, but I tend to stick with the DPMS/SR25 pattern magazine that will allow you to use Magpul PMag LR20s in it, which are pretty much the most popular. You can also use Lancer magazines, which apparently I've heard reports work very well, although I haven't used any of the large frame Lancer mags. Pistol grip, again, all over the place, that's just generally your option. Now, there are quite a few manufacturers out there that build precision rifle ready ARs. I have not really reviewed any ready-to-roll ARs. I'm really interested in the new Savage models that they have out. You can get them in 308 or in various other chamberings, but I got to shoot those at the SHOT Show last year, and I really like the way they did the side charging arrangement on them. The handguard looks to be fairly good, and the rifle felt good overall, and they're not overly expensive. However, I haven't actually got out to shoot one for accuracy or actually do a full test on one, so I can't fully give them my endorsement, but I would definitely recommend you take a look at those. Armalite also has quite a few variants, and Armalite has also now switched back to the original Stoner design on the magazine, so you don't have to worry about only being able to use modified M14 magazines. You can use Magpul magazines in certain models of the Armalite rifles as well. So that's just my general recommendations for a large frame AR. Of course, like I said, a lot of it is just down to personal preference. So check out the different models and see what works for your budget. Our next question comes from Facebook, and Cody asks, how to travel through states where your firearms/magazines are illegal, such as taking an AR-15 with high-cap mags through California. Are there federal protections on interstate transport? I'm driving from Washington to Texas soon, and this time of year the best/safest route in regards to weather takes me through Cali. Well, Cody, I do a lot of traveling around to various different matches, and I do very often travel through states where the items that I am transporting through those states do not comply with that state's specific laws. And there are some federal protections for traveling through those states. 18 U.S. Code 928 covers interstate transportation of firearms, and I'll read the code to you really quickly, so bear with me here. It says, notwithstanding any other provision of any law or rule or regulation of a state or any political subdivision thereof, any person who is not otherwise prohibited from this chapter from transporting, shipping, or receiving a firearm shall be entitled to transport a firearm for any lawful purpose from any place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm to any other place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm if, during such transportation, the firearm is unloaded and neither the firearm nor any ammunition being transported is readily accessible or is directly accessible from the passenger compartment of such transporting vehicle, provided that in the case of a vehicle without a compartment separate from the driver's compartment, the firearm or ammunition shall be contained in a locked container other than the glove compartment or console. Now, you specifically mentioned magazines in your question, and unfortunately the U.S. Code does not cover magazines, so I would really recommend you speak with an attorney for an interpretation of that, if magazines fall under this or not. But I will tell you that the actual firearms, and in my case, what applies to me very often is transporting suppressors. Suppressors do qualify as a firearm under U.S. Code, so suppressors are covered under this. Very often when I travel to matches out west, I have to drive through Illinois, where many of the things that I am going to compete with in that match are illegal. But since they are legal in Indiana, where I'm starting out with, and they are legal in wherever the match is being held and I intend to use that device, then it is legal for me to transport those things through that state. Now, this is one of those things where you have to understand you kind of are working with what's called an affirmative defense. If you are caught, for instance, let's say I got pulled over in Illinois and for whatever reason the law enforcement officers developed cause to search my vehicle and located a silencer in my vehicle, then there's really no question that I was in possession of that item. So now I have to defend my possession of that item, and that can end up costing you a whole lot of time. So you have to be very careful about these kind of things, and you don't want to go put yourself in a position where you then get locked up and you have to go to court and you have to defend it, because right or wrong, it can end up costing you a lot of money and a lot of time. But federal law does cover you in traveling through those states. Now, there are some ambiguities to this. For instance, what constitutes traveling? If you have to stay overnight in a hotel room in an area where that is illegal, well, that is a stop on your journey, but that is not a destination. So are you still covered or are you not covered? I don't know. I haven't seen any court cases specifically covering that where there was no other illegal activity. It was just simply the possession of a restricted item while traveling. So these are things where you really have to consult with an attorney because I'm not qualified to give you legal advice. What I try to do when I'm traveling is I try to make sure that I don't have any planned stops somewhere where the items that are in my vehicle are illegal. So again, if I use Illinois as an example, thankfully I am usually traveling just the width of Illinois, not the length of it, so it is a fairly quick trip through. I can make sure that I am gassed up when I leave Indiana, so I don't need to stop for fuel anywhere along the line. I make sure that I don't need to stop for food anywhere along the line, and I really make sure that I don't have to overnight anywhere in a state where those items are illegal, and I figure that's going to cover me pretty well. If my vehicle breaks down, something of that nature, well, that's an unforeseen thing, and I think that would be defensible in court, in my opinion. Again, not as a lawyer. I feel comfortable that I would be able to defend myself on that point. But again, you need to make those decisions yourself. So federal law does cover you in transporting those items as long as they are legal where you start and they are legal where you end. You can transport them through states where they are not. That's one of the few places where that overreaching interstate commerce clause kind of helps us out and does allow the federal government to trump state laws in this specific case. Now our next question comes from Jackson, and Jackson asks, do you have a go-to pack that holds your rifle and other gear when you go shooting? I shoot on some land that lets me go well beyond what my rifle and I are capable of, but the downside is I can't drive on it. I hike my gear out, rifle, ammo, data, targets, etc. every time I go shooting. I don't mind the walk, but I do need a better way of carrying everything. Is it worth the $300 plus to get an Eberlestock, or is there an alternative? Well, Jackson, I have gone back and forth between the Eberlestock packs and just a regular backpack quite a few times. What I would really recommend is start out, if you don't mind carrying your rifle, over your shoulder, in your arms, slung, whatever, then I would start out with a less expensive pack. Even something like a military Alice pack will hold all of your gear and get you to where you need to go and get back. And I did carry an Alice pack on my back for many, many years, and they can work very well. But if you really need something to contain your rifle, I think the Eberlestock packs are really towards the top, and they strike a good balance between value and utility, and they have a really good warranty on them as well. Now, I stopped using an Eberlestock for regular competition because I found it was just a pain in the butt to get the rifle in and out with the pack loaded. And when you are using them during a competition, you figure that you're going a very short distance, either from the vehicle to the firing line or from firing line to firing line, and you're constantly putting that rifle in and out, in and out, in and out, and you run the risk of rolling turrets and all kinds of other stuff. But then also when you really pack that pack full, and on my X3 I did find myself really packing it full once I get cold weather layers, food, snacks, ammunition, and all the other support gear in it, it was bulged out pretty well. Getting that rifle in required a little bit of maneuvering, and you figure you're putting it in and out once at each stage. That really became cumbersome for me, and it was a whole lot easier for me just to sling my rifle or cradle it or carry it over my shoulder going from point to point, and then only have to worry about my gear inside the bag. That also allowed me to put a water bladder in if I want, put different water bottles on the side, and it allowed me to more easily get in and out of my equipment. With the Eberlestock, if you have the rifle in the scabbard and then you want to get in and get your to your equipment, it's a little bit more cumbersome. You either have to roll the pack over on its side, or you have to stand it up on the muzzle in the scabbard, or you have to lay it on the suspension system on the ground. And depending on how muddy or how dirty, whatever it is, laying it on the ground, now you got that suspension system covered in dirt, and you're going to get it back on you. So just for my style of shooting at matches, I found the Eberlestock to be a little bit more cumbersome, and I've been using Maxpedition Lithbore pack for the last couple of matches that I shot. And the Lithbore is right at the edge of what I need for a regular day match, but not so much for a match where I have to carry insulating layers and rain layers and stuff like that. I need a larger pack if I go to that. Now, if I go to something like an adventure challenge where I have to work out of the pack for several days, then something a little bit larger is really in call, and I prefer to have a scabbard where I can put the rifle if I'm going to have to ruck from point to point. And for that, I'll use Eberlestock Gunslinger 2. That pack is, again, not perfect. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to get the rifle in and out when you have it packed full and you have this hard frame in the pack that has frame pieces that you have to kind of snake the rifle past. But it's the best thing that I've found so far. Now, I may in the future try to do some rucking with a long gun with just one of my regular backpacking packs. I've got a couple of different Osprey and a Gregory pack, which I think I can strap my rifle to and probably work just fine. But now we're getting up into 40 and 70 liter packs where we're really set up to be able to carry a lot of cargo, and that's probably a little more than you need on a regular day trip. So I would say if you don't need to carry the rifle in the pack or on the pack, then just about any day pack that has the capacity to carry the gear you want to carry is a better way to go. If you really specifically want to get the rifle out of your arms and you do want to carry the rifle in or on the pack, then I think something like the Eberlestock X2 is a good option for day trips to the range or day competitions if you really want to be able to carry it that way. So I hope that gives you some options on different things to look at for your intended application. Our next question comes from Paul, and Paul asks, I swapped my stock on a Remington 700 to an HS Precision, and the barrel is not free-floating anymore. How would that affect accuracy? And also, with a 1-pound muzzle device, a suppressor, how would someone go about making the barrel free-float, or does it really matter? Thank you, and keep up the awesome work. Well, Paul, I would say definitely free float your barrel. It can cause some accuracy problems if the barrel is actually laying in that fore-end channel, especially depending on how you load the bipod and depending upon the heat in the barrel. You can have all kinds of different things going on, inconsistent pressure on that barrel and inconsistent harmonics because the barrel can't vibrate at its natural frequency when it's laying against the stock. So I would definitely free float it, and there are a couple of different ways you can do it. You can just take a dowel rod the same size as your barrel. You can wrap sandpaper around it and just move the dowel rod down and back through that barrel channel until you can bolt your action in and run a sheet of paper forward and back in the channel. Very often, if I actually order a stock, I will order a stock for an M40 contour or a full bolt contour and run a Sendero barrel in it. So it gives me a really good amount of clearance in that barrel channel, and hopefully that'll allow debris to fall out. On the old M40A1s, we had much less clearance, and what most of us would do is take a piece of 550 cord, rip the guts out, and when we field prep the rifle, we would run the 550 cord all the way back in the barrel channel, tie a knot on one end and just let it hang out on the other end, and that way before firing we could just drag that 550 cord back down the barrel channel and dump anything out that had collected in there. Now, you should not have hanging a suppressor on the end of a standard target weight barrel, so a Sendero contour, a number 13, a varmint, etc. on heavier. Hanging a suppressor on the end should not cause enough of a droop in that barrel that it is actually going to change the free float. However, just to be on the safe side, I would make sure while you are checking that free float, you have whatever muzzle device you are going to have on the barrel while you do that, and that will give you a little bit better idea of any flex that that barrel is going to have. So hopefully that answers your question on free float, but definitely free float that barrel. And next we have a question from Ricky, and Ricky asks, I'm shooting a 10-22 for both practical and precision, so what rounds do you use for your precision load? Watching your video of your build of the Ruger, are you happy with the barrel you are using, or will you in the end change it for a threaded one as you remarked on your first competition video? As always, love the content of your videos and keep up the good work, brother. Ricky, thank you very much for the question. And for the ammunition that I generally use, I use Wolf Match Target. That I have found works well in a wide variety of 22s, but 22s are very particular about ammunition, so you really need to try a couple of different types. Just buy a 50-round box of various different types of ammunition and see what works best in your rifle. Now, since you are looking at the practical precision side of things, not the bench rest side of things, I wouldn't worry too much about lot numbers, with the exception of making sure you re-zero your rifle when you change lot numbers of ammunition. Bench rest guys will buy up all they can out of one lot and run that lot, and then go through and do some crazy things, some testing in that on the next lot to make sure it's consistent. I don't think we really need to do that, other than making sure that your zero hasn't changed from lot to lot. But definitely try a couple of different types of ammunition. So far, the Wolf Match Target has been working fine in the 10-22, so it's got enough power to cycle that action, and it works fine in the bolt-action rifles that I have. I haven't tried any of the new Norma ammunition. SK is very similar to Wolf, made in the same plant. I actually believe it's probably exactly the same ammunition, but don't hold me to that. And there are quite a few others out there that will work very well. I generally try to stay away from the copper washed stuff. I go with regular lead with a lubricant on it, and that seems to work best as far as match ammunition. So give it a try. Now, as far as my barrel, right now I'm pretty happy with the accuracy of the Green Mountain barrel. I've got a few other things to check out on it, but it's pretty good to go. I'm not real sure if I am going to change that out for a threaded barrel. Now, I hooked my dad into the 22 things, and we are building him a Ruger 10-22 for NRL 22 type competition, and he bought a threaded kid barrel for his rifle. And so once we get it set up and shoot, I'm going to see how that kid works, especially with the Wolf Match Target. And if the kid barrel works really well, then I may look at switching over and buying a threaded kid barrel for it. So again, I can run my suppressor on my rifle. It really isn't that big of a deal, though. I noticed this last NRL 22 match, there really wasn't anyone running suppressors. Pretty much everybody went back to just running plain muzzle because you get a shorter overall package, and we're not dealing with the significant muzzle blast that you deal with centerfire rifles. So the suppressors are nice. I really enjoy shooting suppressed 22s, so that's why I'm considering putting the threaded barrel on. But going back to my father, he decided to run a comp on his, so he got a kid compensator for his rifle. So we're going to put that on there, and we're really going to see how much of a difference that comped 20-inch barrel makes versus my plain muzzle 20-inch barrel. So it ought to be pretty interesting to see. Maybe if you guys are really interested, I'll shoot some video while we do a comparison there, and I'll come back and talk to you about the difference between the plain muzzle and the comp muzzle when we're running fairly similar rifles, because they'll both be heavy barrel 20-inch 10-22s in Victor Company stock, so they'll be pretty comparable between the two. So if you want to see coverage of that, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. I'll be happy to shoot some video whenever we get it out to the range and see how that works out for us. And that is all for this Mail Call Mondays. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. If you guys are watching us or listening to us on your favorite podcast app, you can send questions to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the comment sections down below, or you can send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. As you can see, we are back in the shop. I've got our rig set back up here. And I am using some of the new equipment that you guys on Patreon helped us pick up. If you guys are interested in Patreon and want to know how you can support us and how you can help us to bring you more of the content you've learned to love, then please check out the link to Patreon down below. We can use all the help we can get, and we really, really appreciate the help that you guys have given. It allows us to continue to purchase equipment that allows me to get this job done a little bit easier and at a high production value. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all of the coverage that we have had so far. And if you liked the video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot.